This is the Wags and Fresh podcast. Many times we get asked questions and it sort of stops us in our tracks and we don't even know simple answers to not simple questions, but if they have to do with ourselves, there's sort of some things that we should be able to be answered ourselves, like what's your purpose or who are you? But they don't always have to be deep questions. So my question to you is, what's the one question that you would find valuable to ask yourself more consistently?
I think what do you need to be happy? I think the question. I think that's the one thing that we all look for. Well, I think if there's a consistent thing, I think that the Dalai Lama says that everybody's searching for joy, and I struggle with that because. And I think when I'm in the moments of it, I even get frustrated because not everybody's going to be in the moment at that moment that I'm so happy right now. I'm so joyful. Let's go do something. Let's enjoy this moment. But the other people around me may not be in that moment. And I have to almost avoid or try to figure out how to not slide into a negative place because now I'm frustrated because they're not as happy as I am. Right. So finding a place of happiness that is truly not something connected to other things, and it's not a reaction to something, a reward-based system. It just truly is being happy. So that's probably the one thing that I would ask myself is trying to find out the answer to that, because once you find the answer, you can do that more consistently, right? So.
And I was almost thinking you almost said it like you weren't in the state and you go into the state. What if you started believing it as your natural state and then wondering why you were out of it? Like, start to make it your dominant
your
state.
Default.
Yeah, right.
Your default
yeah,
position.
Don't say that into it is irregular. Being out of it should be irregular. And then maybe you'll be in it more.
Right. So, and because I am definitely in this place where emotions are things that are temporary, right? They are states of mind, if you will, and they do come along at different times, and you are in them and you're out of them. And so I do agree with those concepts of you're in and out of those things, and once you're conscious of that, you can work towards getting in and out of those things. So I'm
perspective, right? I mean,
right.
Perspective is the tool that
For
gets
sure.
you in and out of those things.
Many of the times it does, but I think to your point, I guess my default is probably not necessarily even negative. It's just more. There's a cynicism underlying things where I'm already kind of looking at the world from a specific angle that may already eliminate searching for joy as being default.
Well, let me ask you a follow-up question then. Is there more benefit and protection from the world for having cynicism, or is it more detrimental to you having it?
Yeah, I mean, I know why it's there. It's definitely a protection mechanism, right, for sure.
And does it weigh the cost?
I think that I guess it probably depends on when you ask me that question, because I think that there's a lot of times when I'm in the heat of it, whether it's work related or just personal relationships that are challenging. That cynicism I would look as being a positive because it protects me from being vulnerable.
But do you think it leads you to being out of joy?
Sometimes. I don't necessarily. I think because it's more of my default, it's more of my neutral.
Right.
Right?
Because you could also say, I'm willing to be hurt because I'm not going to sacrifice joy.
Well, that would have to be a mindset perspective.
Right.
I have to say,
in certain situations, I'm not saying that anything is across the board.
Yeah.
Yeah, so.
What about you?
I always love what's behind the scene. I just think that there's always something bigger going on than the people we see and the conversations we're having and the places we are. So it's, what did you learn? What's going on here? What am I missing? How can I look at this different? I'm always inquisitive, I guess. Mm-hmm. But I mean, that's the question that sort of sometimes, like this morning when I was walking the beach, that was the question that progressed other thoughts, because it's weird when you're having thoughts in your own head, they don't necessarily have to come to a conclusion. Sometimes they do. But just by asking yourself a question, it also causes you to pose your answer more specifically and concise than you would have just by free thinking.
Right.
So I think there's a value to asking yourself questions.
For sure. And I think that sometimes, and this is why I think conversations like this are important, to have people in your life that are going to ask you questions that come from a different place, that are motivated from a different place. The words are just slightly different, or maybe it's a different word in the sentence than you would ask. Because the one challenge with asking yourself questions is that you tend to ask yourself the same questions
That's funny.
over and over again, and you also ask them in a way that becomes safe for you because you know the answers, and you're going to get to the same conclusions, and that's all going to validate your thinking. And
yeah, so I actually did a little thing on Anchor, and I said, if you want to learn something new about yourself, ask yourself a new question.
A new question from a new perspective.
And it doesn't even have to be about something you know about. It's even better if you don't, because at least causes you to pause.
And that's why I think when you get into these conversations and you say to yourself, well, why don't we Google that, right? Well, and when you go down those little kind of, wormholes of trying to find out a topic and, hey, that's intriguing to me. What I like about that is how it starts to push, not just, hey, I thought this was true, now I might be thinking this is true, but then how do you then apply that potential new truth to other parts of your life?
That potential educated observation.
Right.
So, it's like,
but I think
there should still be room for folly. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I mean, how else can you land on something different?
Sure.
And
it all starts with there's got to be a willingness to have that adventure and have that exploration, that willingness to be exploratory in yourself.
Yeah.
Because, it's connected to what are you trying to accomplish? You're trying to become a better version of yourself, or, improve certain aspects, strengthen certain parts of yourself. And in many cases, what we're really trying to do is just get comfortable with who we are. I think that's probably
sometimes you don't even know what you're thinking. I mean, you got thoughts, you have however many different voices doing different things. And,
right.
And you got to get comfortable with the one that aligns with all those things you talked about.
So along those lines, the question, the word you just used that I'm going to attach to here is comfort. And what's something that you could do right now that would push you into an uncomfortable place that you'd think you get the most growth from? And then the follow-up to that is then why aren't you doing that to push yourself to grow?
I would just speak my truth in front of bigger crowds of people, because that would solidify what I believe. It would make me work on what I believe more, because I'd want to make sure I communicated that clearly. And I think, the bigger voice you can have, I know that's sort of one of the callings I got. It's like, I have more for you and I want more from you. Like, that's been the latest thing. And now with the book wrapping up, part of my thinking is, what is the next, endeavor, and what is the next adventure? Is it a video series? Is it speaking? Is it leading? Is it in ministry? Is it in chiropractic? I don't know.
Right.
But so, yeah, I mean, that's where we're at, and I'm willing to say yes to anything, but I think that's also can be a pass and a back door too. Even though I'd say yes to any situation, even if it scared me, it still doesn't mean I'm driving it and making it happen.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say.
So that's the real thing. Well, I mean, for me first, this is sort of like, I wouldn't say a pause moment, but with the book finishing, I'm starting to learn more about patience and time. I mean, that was one of the things I'm most excited about. That was school. They always had the structure for me. You knew how long the program was going to be, and you did it. And that's one thing, to stay dedicated to that. It's another thing to have no schedule, be committed to something for close to a year, and work on it all the time when you feel like it and don't feel like it, and complete it. So I think that's another tool that I'm happy about, following it through like that, because there's so many things that we don't, and there are some things that we do, and we learn from both. But this is sort of pivotal for me to see what's next, but most importantly, to understand how long things take, and it took a long time. It wasn't just saying yes to a book. There were so many times where I wish I would have wrote a book. I don't really have anything like that on my list right now. My mind's clear.
Sure.
So I'm just filling it with the word and waiting for the next call, and then I'll just jump in there.
So it's so interesting how it's great to have those moments of, relief because things are done. They become these, like you said, pause moments between what you were working on to what you're going to be working on. And, the thing you have to work towards is how do you minimize that time, how long that pause is, right? Mm-hmm. Because it is important to kind of have that target on the board to say, this is what I'm focused on next. So maybe what, and this isn't what you have to do, but just based off of what I'm hearing, you want to get in front of bigger crowds. You want to be able to have a bigger voice. So maybe something along the lines. And
there's always projects going on. Like right now, my project is compassion.
Right.
It's husband, father, and then, the office, just having compassion for people. And I think I had this thought this morning too. It's, you can't be as hard on other people as you are on yourself. Like that's what I was thinking when I was thinking about this morning. And I just I'm very hard on myself, and just as a caregiver, as a husband, as a father, that's not, the greatest thing to do is be how hard on others how you are on yourself.
Sure.
So there are always projects going on, but the cool thing is all these projects, even if it's a pause, whatever, in project oriented, we're always gathering skill sets. For sure. Every day, every moment.
And I think that what I was ultimately leading to there was maybe there should be a vague target that you're looking at of saying, it's almost like whether you look at somebody like Billy Graham or even, we watch a lot of comedians. Kevin Hart just dropped another special and he's in front of 50,000 people or whatever the audience was, but he started in small clubs, right? So that's really kind of the
you
same
hear those
mindset.
Stories, sleeping on each other's couches.
Right.
5 clubs a night at the different set lists.
Yep.
5 nights a week. Those guys are animals.
They're grinding it out.
Yeah, it's awesome, and they're wordsmiths.
But I think that's something that you could kind of say, okay, getting in front of a bigger group, even if it's not ultimately where you land, a bigger group could be something based off of something you already know, like because you had an experience like that, and it may come in a totally different platform or a format for you. But at least there's a visual to say, this would be something like what I'm talking about.
The number of the crowd doesn't really matter. The reason I brought up the crowd was to press my truth. I think my truth is pressed more the more I feel like I'm around more people to influence. So that was where that nature came from. But it all starts from the same place, which is get in front of whoever you can. But it's neat as we're talking, and I don't know how this will lead, but it's almost like the book is now the platform,
right?
So that's where I'll probably be speaking a lot and presenting the book and things. But just to switch gears, if you had to eliminate a letter from the alphabet, which letter would it be?
Probably Q. I don't use it a lot. Almost, obviously we all get into QU is how you write every word, but I just don't use enough Q words to care about Q. And it doesn't seem to be. There aren't a lot of Q words that I even, not only do I not write them, but I don't even think I use many of them. Quiet, quick.
Q, quip, yeah.
I mean,
we could probably do without it.
Done. It's official. We're eliminating Q.
Any number you think we can go without? I thought we could just go to 0, 5s, and 10s. Maybe 0, 1, 5, 10. I think we got it covered.
Any number. Probably pi.
Yeah.
Only simply because I know that although there are probably people that would listen to this and say, explain how important pi is.
Right, to all the physics equations
right,
and how it holds
exactly.
the world together. Yeah.
But I don't have any understanding of what it does there. So and then there's like a little cult thing around that, but is that really even a number? I don't know. It's I don't know if there is a number because I'm more of a numbers guy.
Yeah, I figured,
so
yeah.
I'd probably be a little bit more protective of the numbers. Although I'd be okay if 0 went away. There's literally no value to
Yeah.
that. So other than
It's
almost
just a
like
placeholder. That's what
I
I've
was
been
just
told.
exactly going to
Yeah.
say the same word. It's a placeholder between negative and positive. That's all it is.
What about what was the most interesting question you were asked this week?
This week, I don't know if I was given any major, altering questions. No, I guess the only one that sticks out, and this is going to seem, because my first instinct was to go to all work questions and things like that, and it did happen at work, but somebody had asked me why I don't wear my wedding ring, and actually the main reason is because somebody stole it, but I haven't replaced it. Actually, I do have a different wedding ring. The wedding ring that I lost, or it was stolen, I pretty much know where it was stolen, was my original wedding ring. Then we had gotten new rings about 10 years into our marriage, and I was wearing that for a long time. And then I took that off and went back to the other one, and that one got stolen, and I just never put the other one back on. And it's interesting because once I took it off and it got stolen, a lot of thought went into, should I put on the other one? Should I get a different one? More because it was very simple. It was just a very simple gold band, and I liked that aspect of it. But then we kind of were going through like one of the better stretches of our relationship, for years, and it almost felt like, well, why do I need to put it on? Our relationship's going great, so why would I put something on? Even though having a ring on or off won't necessarily change anything, it seemed to be progressing really positive since then, which happened like 2.5 years ago.
It's almost like a hockey beard.
Yeah. Yeah, kind of. A rally cap or something. Yeah, it definitely became that. So, but trying to explain that to the woman that asked me that question was kind of hard because does it sound like a guy answer? You know what I mean? Like, like an excuse why I don't. But she doesn't wear it either. She hasn't worn hers since I haven't worn mine. So, and there really hasn't been much discussion about it. Yeah. So there hasn't been any. So that was probably the most interesting, only because I haven't thought about it in a while. And that's. How about you?
I think it was somebody was asking about care and how some people will move around things just to get the new ache and pain of the day. They'll do their elbow one day, and they said, wouldn't it be better if you just kept the therapy on their main problem?
Right.
And actually make some ground on that. And if you look at different things, there's sometimes there's pros and cons to doing things. Sometimes feeling a little good for the moment isn't necessarily on the long haul going to get you where you want to go, because those things just would have resolved themselves. So if you're throwing all your energy and your cannons all over the place and you're missing the main your main problem, that'll stay a problem, and the other things are going to resolve anyway, but you'll have lost time working on what's important. So it was just a health question,
right?
That was a philosophy question, and just by having a philosophy, they were able to answer their own health question,
right?
Because philosophies are solid all the way through, and they have
right.
application in all different areas. So that was sort of cool.
What about what's probably this has been an interesting week. They're all interesting weeks, but what has been maybe the most, whether it's a solidified lesson or at least something that you took away from this week that you're continuing to think about and to ponder and see, explore on how that applies to your life? Is there something like that that's happened?
Yeah, for sure. Today, and many days, I have all these amazing moments of seeing connections, seeing God, seeing that He's real. And for the longest time, I had such a big need to capture them all, repeat them in my mind, and write them down, almost to build my own case that what I was experiencing was true. And this week, something great happened. I sort of feel like I don't have to do that anymore.
Right.
You know, it almost is so true that I don't have to prove it to myself anymore.
Right. And that's a great place to get, because there's always all of the things we go through in life. There's and I think it really was referencing earlier. You know, it's just getting comfortable within your own skin, within that thought, within, you know, your experience, that you just don't doubt yourself. It's a very hard thing and a place to get to. And it doesn't mean that once you get there that you never look back.
You get to that moment, and that moment doesn't mean it goes on forever. You know?
But it does mean that you now have a place where you can remind yourself that I can get there.
It's another touchstone.
And you can go, okay, I know. And then the journey becomes, how do I make sure that becomes, I'm there more than I'm not. No different than what you were talking about, creating like happiness as the default. And then, you know, you're working outside of that from there. So, yeah.
And all of it's important. I don't think, it'd be funny to think that you would get to some place, you'd stop doing what got you there, and then you think you'd stay there. It was just a thought I had that accumulated my whole experience. But if I was to trash everything I did to get there, it'd be very hard to continue to feel that way, because that feeling and that everything that happened in that moment came from effort.
Sure.
You know, it came from work and came from staying in the Bible and came from all those different things. So if I were to take away the pieces that got me there, because there's still going to be moments that I'm going to want to write down and capture. So that's one thing I do a lot of times to my detriment, is I'm a light switch. I'm like, you write it down, you write everything down. You don't write it down, you don't write nothing down. This is the way everything is. Not, you know, and the reality is, or, what I've experienced is that there are things that you're going to want to write down that are special, and there are going to be moments where you feel like you have to write something down, and a voice is going to say, "You don't have to write that down. You're good."
It's funny you use the term the light switch as an analogy, because that is definitely, from my perspective, when I watch certain things that you do, it's like this. It's an on off. It's this hot cold.
I tell people that all the time.
You know,
it's like there's no middle switch.
Yeah. And I would say that, you know, we've talked about this before, that one of the things that's, interesting about our relationship is how really different we are. And for me, I'm definitely a slide light,
Dimmer. Yeah.
I'm a dimmer, I'm a brightener, whatever you want to, whichever direction you're going in. There is no complete bright, there is no complete dark, you know, everything's in the middle or some version of that. Everything's a percentage of something, and nothing's 100% or zero. And so it's interesting to see that. Not to say that there aren't things in my life that I have a light switch for, and you probably have a dimmer switch for too, more than you think. It's just that, again, going back to the word default, our default positions are, well, you know, that's just to varying degrees of that. And and I had that experience this week, with understanding that I had an opportunity to work with some of the team members that I don't normally get to work with directly. And you can see that within the group. You can see they get it by being very sort of high level philosophical, and then others that are just, that they're just not going to get it, and they almost need that light switch, because that's the only way they get it. It either is a yes or it's no. It's not that, you can teach them a philosophy and they know how to apply it to all these different things. Only a few people within that group can really get that. Those are.
I don't think you could be a good communicator and only be on or off. I mean, that you have to, on and off is a very, what would you call it?
Divisive at times.
So I would say it's a selfish perspective.
But it also can create a group of people that would probably be extremely loyal is probably the wrong word, but would identify with the on switch in such a way that they would be dedicated to that in a way that a dimmer switch person wouldn't, because you're always nebulous. You're always
Right.
like, well, I see your point of view, and I see your point of view, and I see your point of view, and you all have a great point of view, and there is no yes or no. And a lot of people want yes or no.
But the dimmer switch does still have the same brightness as on.
Correct.
So I think if your real goal was to serve other people, you'd almost have to
But I
have
think-
other modes.
But don't you really think that what we're saying is that we just serve different people?
Yeah. I mean, I guess I'm trying to fit the on and off to other people, but I was really almost just thinking on and off to myself, because I'm so driven, just like repetitive,
Right.
that I need to know what I'm doing, and not getting it done is stressful to me.
Right.
So it either has to be on the list or off. But if we're going to relate it to people, that clearly doesn't work. I already know it doesn't work, because, the more passionate I am, I have a very hard time realizing that other people haven't spent 30 years doing what I'm doing.
Sure.
So and it doesn't work. It actually repels, and the people that it keeps never makes up for the damage that it causes.
But I don't think you know that to be true for sure.
Right, but I mean, if my job is to truly...
I think that's what you think, because you didn't break through, so therefore you're only seeing that, well, this
Right,
could
but
have
if I
gone
was
down.
truly thinking about them, I would have no expectation of the outcome. Right?
Yeah.
So I wouldn't be even expecting them to get anything different.
Sure.
I would just be loving them better. I just feel like I just feel like there's not compassion sometimes if I'm too on, and I don't have that, switch to know that
Well, maybe it's the
because
switch,
Dim
the
could
on-off
be
switch.
listening,
Correct.
and
And I think, but it doesn't mean that listen, you're probably always going to be an on-off switch guy.
Yeah.
The only thing you have to say is, in this moment, can I be a dimmer switch temporarily to make sure that they can accept the on-off switch at some point, right? Because at some point they're going to be in a place where you'd say, well, this is what I think you need to do, right? You're going to have to get to that point, whether it's faith-based in a conversation or practice-based. There's both of those situations. You're going to have to get them to a place where you're going to say, okay, are you committed to this? Because the next step is X, Y, and Z. So maybe the lesson to this, because when you think about what you said earlier, it really is learning how to communicate to more people in that way, which
Right.
is to take an aspect of yourself and say, I know this is who I am, but how can at times I be temporarily something other than what I am, to garner the ability
it's
to...
training in it. Like this week, compassion was the priority over education.
Right.
And so just by flipping that, I had a better time.
Right.
The people had a better time. They were more receptive. They probably got better care because they thought they were, even though they were getting the same care. But it's just, I just think, and just from going, to a concert before, education, sentences, all these things will never trump emotion, experience, and things like that. So if you're not tapping into that level, you're not communicating to anybody, no matter how well your words are put together. And that's just why I think sometimes, and it can be a pride check. I had a good pride check this week, and I could tell because it led to frustration and anger.
Right.
And what's going to lead to frustration and anger is things that aren't good, and what's not good, pride. And it, I traced it back to that, and I just, humbled myself and went straight towards compassion, and it turned the whole week around, and it was a better week, and took care of more people, saw more people, and more people are excited about being there.
Yeah, that's what
and
I'm
I'm
gonna
excited
say.
about taking care of people.
Yeah, it's even if the number of people were the same or lower, you're in a place that you're going to
I'm attracting.
Correct.
You're a positive magnet when you're being compassionate.
Yeah.
If you have pride and you want everybody to get it and understand it, and you're not listening to them or hearing what they're trying to say, then you're being a negative magnet, and that's gonna repel.
I think I had the exact opposite week. I had to go in and because so much of the team's job is to be relationship and brand ambassadors, relationship builders. And it's interesting to talk to different people about how they define relationships, and everyone always will go initially to build a good relationship, they have to like you, and you have to like them. I think there's an element to that
to make
that's
money,
true, right? Yeah, I think there's an element to liking people as it relates to building relationships that is true, but I think it becomes a crutch that a lot of people can lean on, partially because they might be comfortable at building relationships and getting people to like them, and they know that it's easy for them, so they go, "Oh, I'm going to get them to like them." But part of the job that we have in our roles is to also push people and be confrontational and be at times argumentative and debate. And if you want people to like you, that's a tough thing to do, because now you're going to say, well, if I do all those things, they're going to like me less. So the motivation I've always said is not necessarily, you don't want them not to like you, but if you're going to have to say, do I want them to like me or respect me? I'd rather them respect me, right? Because at least from there, you can respect them from a business perspective. They're going to respect you, and you can have business conversations based off of that respect level. So, because listen, at the end of the day, they have a business to run, you have a business to run, and you're trying to work together. And sometimes that's going to be in hand in glove. Sometimes it's not.
And I think the like factor changes in the business world when enough time goes on that you make them more money. So what seemed confrontational is just a battle of prides or a battle of how we used to do it.
Yep.
And then if you could, there's no soft way to go through that sometimes.
Right.
But once they do and they see there's more money and it's easier for them or whatever the case may be, you become more likable.
Right, and I think that was my
and
message
respected.
to them. Correct.
I mean, especially respected.
It doesn't even matter if you're more likable, because as long as you're more respected, they're going to continue to want you to come in and help them with their business or whatever the case may be. So, I mean, a lot of my message was just basically, be less empathetic to their situation, be more, not necessarily argumentative, but be ready and willing to, fight the fight as it relates to our agenda and what we're trying to accomplish, and understand that may not be in line with what our partners are trying to do.
It's almost like walking up to an emergency situation. Like your whole team is around, or their whole team is around a person on the ground.
Right.
The person on the ground is their business. And you walk up and you're like, you call 911, you get over here. Somebody has to take control, or at least offer to take control, or else everybody's just going to sit around and watch the business.
And if you've ever been in an experience like that, which I know you have, those people are not worried about, hey, I'm screaming at 10 people and I'm going to worry about those 10 people being mad at me that I screamed at them.
Right.
This person on the ground is dying.
Right.
So you're not paying attention, I'll yell louder. Go do this.
Yep.
I need you to go do that. At the end of it, everyone's like, man, that person took amazing control of that situation and saved that person's life, or did whatever they could. And I think that, again, everyone's going to respect that person, but maybe not everybody's going to see, man, I really want to hang out and like that person. But which one would you rather be? And in some cases, if you are somebody, again, this is more applicable to what, my job is and what we do. But if you are more wired to be liked than respected, then you're going to have challenges within the role that we have for you. Doesn't mean you can't do other things within the organization or do other careers that are amazing.
Well, those they struggle to lead. They struggle to do a lot of things. Those are a lot of the things that I work through.
I joked with my counterpart on the West Coast this week that he had asked me a question about a team member, and I said he's a really nice guy. I really like him. I said, but he might be too likable, because unfortunately it seems like the people who are not worried about being liked, have more success within this job. I said, kind of like you and me, right? Him and I are not concerned with whether people like us. We're concerned with being likable enough to, and more importantly, be respected to go do things, and get those things done. But we're not sitting around wondering, I wonder if that person and this person like me or not.
And then that's not even for the individual account too. The more people you get to, because you don't care about yes or no's or what people think, the more you'll be around people that respect you, and it's easier to get things done
Yep.
than it is being around, people that will never give you their respect, because that's the way they done it, that's the way it's going to be, and that's the way it's going to go, and then your kindness will work against you because
One of the sayings that we use all the time is when people mistake kindness for weakness, it's bad for them, because you're trying to just be kind with and recognizing their situation, and you try to be kind, and then they might not even be malicious in their actions, but then they take that for granted. They do things they shouldn't do, and you're like, oh, now they're taking advantage of my kindness, and then you unfortunately have to crack down on them, and they might not like that. But so I think it's interesting that our weeks were sort of the opposite, because as you talk about having to be more compassionate, my element that I have to work on continuously, and this week was a great example of that, is patience, because I just want to yell at the top of my lungs, like, wake up and get this done and let's go, and what are we waiting for, and I understand too that it's a process for some people. But I was very candid with the group this week that I also recognize that not everybody's going to make it to that place, and then you and or I will have to make decisions on whether this is good for them, this career that they've chosen. So, but interesting lessons learned, and that's applicable to all these things we talk about that are a lot of times driven because our experiences at work are really the same things applying to home, and being patient with the family, being compassionate with the family, and all those things. So it's great. So let's everybody know what the title of your book is and where they can get it.
It's called Winning Moments: How to Do Everything for Better Health. It's the quest for the 24-hour workout, and it's on Amazon and Kindle ebooks. Actually, I like Kindle ebooks a little better. It's less money, and I like that the table of contents is hyperlinked.
Right.
You know what I mean? So you can hit it and go right to chapters, keep it in your pocket, because it's not just a read-through book on how to think and see things and how to win every moment you possibly can, mentally, physically, and spiritually, but it's also situational too. So if you do get in a jam, or you have a grandparent that gets in a jam and they just need to find better ways to put on shirt, put on shoes, change their clothes. If you're having trouble, you need to learn how to, mow the lawn or sweep or pick something up. There's all sorts of little tips on how to do that, not just to avoid pain, but to make yourself actually stronger in the process. So the concept sort of happened with me. I had to learn how to do everything in a way that would allow me not to be in excruciating pain. And then I started learning over 20 years that those same way I was doing those things to avoid pain were actually the proper way to do things in the first place. And then I ended up focusing on doing that in everything I do, so that my whole day is now a workout.
Right.
So that's the concept of the book, and it's out and about.
Great. So you'll see our new tagline is hit play, and really, again, what that really references is hit play in your own life. Do things, try things, explore things, make your day and your week as great as possible. And continue to push yourself into new areas of growth so you can become the person that you want to become.